Okay, so let's get right into it. There was this huge confrontation with Iran recently, right? And it sent shockwaves all over the world. But one analyst, Dalia Zada, she's saying the real impact, it wasn't just about that one incident. No, she argues it was the thing that kicked off a complete reordering of the entire Middle East. And that's her big, provocative claim. She says, this is the end of the Middle East as we know it. And what she means is, we're not just watching another crisis play out. No, we're witnessing the birth of a totally new reality in the region. A reality where all the old rules, they just don't apply anymore. So we're going to break down her whole analysis. And really, it all comes down to this one big question. How could one single event completely change the game for every single major player in the region? That's what we're digging into. Okay, so first up, let's look at what happened right after in the Arab Gulf countries. According to Zada, the reaction there wasn't just, one simple emotion. She calls it a kind of emotional whiplash, a really dramatic sudden shift from one feeling to a totally different one. And you can really see that whiplash here. On one hand, you had this initial sense of, relief. People thought, wow, maybe the whole Sunni-Shia thing is finally ending. Maybe the Iranian regime is about to fall. But then, just like that, it flipped. That relief turned into straight-up fear when Iran retaliated, basically moving the fight right into the Gulf. Suddenly, they were the target. And that was a huge shock. I mean, you gotta understand, for the first time ever, these Arab Gulf states were no longer just observers of all the turmoil in the region. For decades, they were kind of immune to it. But now they were the main target of a major military power. That's a terrifying new reality to wake up to. All right, so that fear led to something really unexpected, a major realignment. And this is where Iran's strategy, according to Zeta, just spectacularly backfired. It's like they scored a massive own goal on the strategic chessboard. So think about it. Iran's goal was pretty straightforward. Make the conflict bigger to put pressure on the US. But the result? It was the exact opposite of what they wanted. It actually pushed old rivals like the UAE and Saudi Arabia together. For the first time, these Gulf states started thinking like one collective. And this new alliance, it ended up siding with the US and Israel against this common enemy. And this is where Zeta just says it plain. It's huge. It's a huge game changer, in my opinion. She's not talking about some small adjustment here. This, for her, completely rewrote the rules for the entire region. Okay, so from there, Zada shifts gears. She moves away from the big geopolitical picture and focuses right on the Iranian people. And she has a really important warning for them, one that comes from her own experience during the Arab Spring. She has a name for it, the day after problem. And here's what she means. It's that super critical, super fragile moment right after a dictator falls. A huge power vacuum just opens up, and if the people who fought for democracy don't fill that void and fill it fast, someone else will. Usually, it's extremist groups. She saw this firsthand with the Arab Spring, where Islamists swooped in and basically hijacked the revolution. So this is the trap she's warning them about. Step 1, the dictator falls. Step 2, a power vacuum emerges. Step 3, extremist groups try to grab power. So what's the solution? She says it's simple, but it's urgent. You have to plan ahead. The democratic groups inside Iran need to be planning right now for that transition, so they're ready to step in with a real plan the second the regime is gone. And all of this, it leads to what is probably her boldest prediction of all. She says we're seeing the end of the old Middle East and the rise of a brand new power structure, and it's going to be led by two countries you might not expect. So if you look at how she sees the timeline of leadership in the region, it's really clear. In the past, you have the Nasserist Arabs, Egypt and Syria taking the lead. More recently, after the Arab Spring, the Gulf states really stepped up. But the future? In her view, the era of Arab leadership is over. A totally new order, led by non-Arab powers, is being born as we speak. So who are these new leaders? Here's the punchline of her whole analysis. The two new powers who are going to set the agenda for the Middle East are not Arab states. They're Turkey and Israel. She even calls them the new big sisters of the region. So what does this new power structure look like? Well, the leaders, the big sisters, are Turkey and Israel. Now, that doesn't mean other countries aren't important. The Arab states will still be a huge economic power, and a rebuilt, civilized Iran could be a major cultural power, but they won't be the ones in the driver's seat. And what's really interesting is that she says Washington gets it.
The US sees this shift happening and knows that cooperation between Turkey and Israel is now crucial.
And that leaves us with one final massive question to think about. If she's right, if we really are watching a new Middle East being born, one led by Turkey and Israel, what does that mean for global alliances for decades to come? How does that change, well, everything?